And we're back with another episode of On the Record with Tiffany. And I'm your host, Tiffany Smith, here on my home network, 9:30 a.m. The Answer. And here representing the African American Network, where we have a local feel and a global reach. And I have a special guest, Mr. William Tutt, a cognitive therapist who is making a change and a difference in our world, and I want you guys to hear. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Tutt.
I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. I also wear the title as the criminal justice behavior consultant by going into the prisons, and talking to the inmates and trying to get them to, change the way that they see themselves in their community, try to get them to change the way that they process information, if you will. I have an organization that's called Cognitive and Behavior Redirection Center. And a part of my organization, we have two major training components or modules, if you will. The first one is the GRIP program, which stands for Gang Rehabilitation in Progress. Our motto is to try to enable positive thought during challenging situations. Now, a lot of people that live in the hood don't recognize what a challenging situation is, because we're like chameleons. We adapt, to the stress or to the anxiety that we're up under, and then we keep on living our lives instead of allowing it to, be a brick wall, if you will, in our pattern. And the second component of the training program is urban psychotherapy, law enforcement, and judicial training. And this component right here is my pet peeve and very important because of what we are now able to see on a multiple scale, the abuse, that law enforcement has administered, on the African American impoverished communities for, so many years. The police department has a motto and has a theme, that stands for, by any means necessary, get the job done, and I got your back. So what that would tell me as an officer is that, I can break the law. I can violate your rights because they have my back, because this type of brotherhood could be considered to be, a gang. And I want to talk about the training for a police department and why it is so important for them to receive this type of training. Because officers are influenced by the commanders to make arrests, right? Arrests are down. We got to make arrests. So I'm sending out a verbal subliminal suggestion to, by any means necessary, make that arrest. Now, what neighborhoods do officers patrol the most? The neighborhoods that are high in crime. The neighborhoods that are low in crime, they only go there when there's a call. So if I'm considered to go and to patrol this neighborhood and I got to make arrests, then when I see a group of African American young men, the preconditioned behavior system of the law enforcement is to do what? Enforce the law. Now let's go all the way back to the 1700s, and we have to show that the badge and what it stands for. So the African Americans who were slaves at that time, they created what's called the plantation police and gave these individuals badges and the right to become slave hunters, to hunt the runaway slaves or those who were disobedient, and to either discipline them or to bring them back dead. And they had the right to do so. And they would fill out these documents, as far as who they captured or who they killed, so that you can be taken off of the list and off of the count, so to speak. So as the people in the North began to say this is inhumane, whites and blacks in the North began to say this is inhumane and protest against this type of behavior and authority that was given, well, they sanctioned them by law and allowed them to become law enforcers. So if it says whites over here and blacks over here, now I have someone to enforce that law. So the concept of protecting and serve does not apply to the African American community, to the communities of people of color, especially to the individuals that live in the hood, the urban environments. So if I do not understand your condition, if I do not understand the mental way that you think as an officer, the preconditioned behavior of being a slave hunter is alive right now today. The concept of then of me being able to whoop and beat my slave because I am the plantation officer and not receive any type of punishment, charges, is still the concept and the preconditioned behavior that you see today. This is why it's crucial for officers to receive this urban psychotherapy training to understand the effects that slavery has on the African Americans and the Caucasians. You see, because we're not the only ones that suffer, because the fact of privilege is a real diagnosis. Because you can have someone, and this has been proven in social media and in research, they had an individual who was poor trash being interviewed, and they still considered to be better than Jay-Z and Beyonce, even though, you know, they're highly educated, worth millions, and these individuals barely making enough money. But the concept that Jay-Z and Beyonce are black, that they're niggers, the N-word, and that we are white, still prevails, even if I'm down here at the totem pole socioeconomically. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the fact about privilege and these preconditioned behaviors, it's alive within the police departments right now today. Now we take an African-American police officer, a Chinese or Hispanic police officer. You know, their intention is to go in there and make change, right? They grow up wanting to be officers to make change. But yet, and then they also become a part of the preconditioned behaviorisms and preconditioned beliefs. Because once you're in this gang, this law enforcement society, I don't want to keep saying it's a gang because that's the wrong word to use, and I'm not being disrespectful to law enforcement. But once you become a part of this law enforcement society, there's always already a preconditioned behavior and a belief system. Do what is necessary, and I got your back.
So when you train officers, what's the outcome you're seeking?
The outcome that I'm seeking is to enable positive thought during a challenging situations, but to also have
for them too.
For them as well, for them especially, because I teach de-escalation, right, prior to going to the scene. And it starts with the dispatcher. Oh, we got so-and-so, a black male, this and this and he's right there. If someone will report differently, we have a male, this and this and that, this is the description. And remember, guys, use discretion and de-escalate the situation. Versus hyping them up. Because as soon as they get out the car, when I teach and train, I show many videos of when the officer puts the car apart, runs over there, the suspect is already handcuffed and subdued. So what was the kick for? What was the extra hit for? He's already there and subdued. He doesn't know what to do with his adrenaline. You see what I'm saying? He doesn't know how to de-escalate or how to put himself into call upon something, 1, 2, 3, then get out the car. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying he's been hyped up.
He's hyped up already. Right.
And he gets to the scene and his adrenaline's going.
Right. So there's nothing that he can do with it but release it through his training. And this is why you hear about defunding the police. It's not about not paying them, because we need the police to secure our neighborhoods and borders and whatnot.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes. But defunding them means that you don't need to learn tactical holes. You don't need to have all of this tactical gear. Right? Does it protect you? Yes, but it also encourages you to be more aggressive. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
So we look at the front lines and we hear what they're saying. Go ahead.
So you're saying to demilitarize the police to some degree because that is a very militarized mentality to go right in and go with the highest level of
threat.
Of aggression in the situation, instead of walking in and observing the situation before taking action.
Right.
Because that's how we get situations where a child who's holding, a toy gun gets shot. Simply just standing back, taking a parameter and watching what's going on before taking any action.
And see, that's my whole point. When they're in this conflicting situation, right, they're already trained to think a certain way. So this is why I offer this training, to allow you to make a better choice, a better decision, because the pattern has to change. We're going to continue to see more abuse, more deaths. I don't know how many deaths in 2019 and 19 that we've seen, that we actually saw happening. And what I see is murder. You see what I'm saying? But being a police officer and the concept that I have your back, and then when we talk about the next thing I want to talk about is epigenetic inheritance, right? So the effects of slavery, lies in our genome makeup, in our genetic makeup. So you have your chromosomes from your parents that are part of your DNA that will never change. But the DNA can be altered. It can be altered. You have what's called writers, erasers, and those that accept the traumatic experience that people go through by giving that concept the protein that it needs so that you can transfer that behaviorism or that preconditioned belief system or that privileged right, to the generation, the next generation on. So what I teach officers about VSS, verbal and visual subliminal suggestions. So when another officer sees the Rodney King beating and see that they all got away with it, that is a visual subliminal suggestion to tell me that my behavior is okay. Then we have those visual subliminal suggestions that are unseen, right? The ones that are placed in cartoons, the ones that are placed in advertisements, the ones that are placed in the things that we read, but we can't, the subconscious mind don't pick it up. But once the trigger word, make America great again, it triggers you, and then you act out with a predisposed belief system due to epigenetic inheritance. And epigenetic inheritance is the science behind the same effects that we're experiencing as African Americans. We go at each other. Why? We live under the same cognitive, economical disadvantages by living in the hood. But we are conditioned to not like one another and to respect the Caucasian. You're at the stoplight. The music is playing. The officer rolls up. You turn the music down, get up, and put the seatbelt on and straighten up. You're conditioned to do so. On the other side, Lil Willie pulls up. You look at him with, what's up, homie? What's up, cuz? What's up then? And that is a conditioning behaviorism, you see, due to environmental dictation. This is why it's important for this training, to be for law officers and the GRIP program for the individuals that are suffering these conditions in the hood, because they're not going to go see the psych. And the psych is not going to come to the hood to give them a proper diagnosis. Psychology is the study of behaviorisms of individuals in their natural environment.
Which means the environment that they are perpetuating and don't even know that they've got this crabs in a bucket thing going. We talk about that all the time.
All the time.
As Black people, we discuss that all the time, that people will see one person moving forward and try to pull that person back. No, you're not supposed to do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. We don't have to worry about white people coming in and holding us down.
We do not.
Because we're doing it ourselves.
Correct.
We literally have to, and that's why I like the training that you're talking about, because there is more to this than just you need to go get a job. Or we need to have better jobs over here.
And that's the thing. That doesn't even scratch the surface.
Mental, there's an entire, I mean, before you can get to change or alter epigenetics, before you can get to the point of changing and altering epigenetics, you have to recognize that there's a problem here. And there's a problem that we have to look at and identify as this is not who we have to be. You don't have to be in a specific little box to be Black. There is no definition. The only definition of you being Black is the color of your skin. You get to define who you are and who you're going to be in this life. As soon as we can impart that into our kids, into our community, you can define yourself. So today you can decide, I want to redefine who I am.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I love about your story, is that, yes, you were indoctrinated into probably one of the worst environments that a person could be indoctrinated into at 13 years old. You're just a kid. And at that point, when you're thrown into that, it A, looks perfectly normal. B, what you were doing in that environment was trying to be successful. you're being very successful in the environment that you're in, because there is something in us that wants to be successful. In every single human being, you want to be successful,
no matter what you're
in whatever
doing.
it is you're doing. So you're being successful in that, but you always had the agency to be the success that you are today, to reprogram what you were thinking, and to change your whole life and change the trajectory of other people's lives, because you've done that by being who you are right now. You know, I'm sure that you lament some of the things that you did when you were a kid, but you need to remember all the things you've done in the last 20 years that have been so life-changing for everybody around you. And creating a program like this, throwing that pebble into the pond of life, all the ripples that are happening because of it, on the police side and on the kid side, that's something to be commended. You know, I'm really proud of what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
And I love this. You know, I'm 100% behind you and what you're doing for our community and for the Caucasian community. It's really something that will foster difficult conversations, but unite people in a way that they need, that they desperately need. So, tell me some more about when you do this with police officers. Do you have any data on what kind of impact you've had with them?
So thus far, like, my program is an evidence-based program. So I have evidence-based, a 10-year span for the GRIP program. So due to the pandemic, in 2020 is when I'm just getting started. So I would have to run a program at least for about 1 year, and then it's going to take me at least about 6 months to gather that data. Now, when the officers receive this type of training, right, I have their name and their information. Now, you track them after that by saying, have they been written up? Have they gotten any grievances? What is their percentage now of stops versus whites, Caucasians, and Hispanics? And that is the way you gather that data and information to see if there is a behavioral change. But the thing is go back to what you're saying. So if I sit here and go, Tiffany, you have a scratching problem, you're going to go, no, I don't. Then I'm going to say, okay, let's look at the film. And then you're going to see yourself scratching, but it's normal to you. It's normal to your mind. It's normal to your brain, right? So until I show you that there is a problem with the way that you think, with the way that you behave, this training, has a probability of not being successful or acceptable. Does that make sense? Because if you recognize, okay, maybe I do pull blacks over more than I do whites. Okay, now I have an opportunity to help this officer as well. You see where I'm going with that? But if you do not want to make a change, you're comfortable in your zone and where you're at, then the program is less effective that way. Sure enough, they'll get the information. Sure enough, they'll see the same situation and scenario, but will the behavior change? So a part of the training, one more thing, a part of the training is that once I train the officers, that next day we go out to the hood so they can identify these behaviors that they would identify yesterday as being negative.
I think that's a really, you have some evidence in, there's a program in Camden, New York, that they did something similar to this. Not your training, but having officers walk the streets and get to know the people, their job.
I know exactly. I forgot the name of that, but it's them getting back into the community.
Yeah, right. And I think you have some evidence that can buoy up your premise here for what you're doing work-wise, because we're primed for that for this particular program right now.
Very much so.
This period of time is perfect for this program.
So what I do prior to the training, we give what's called a pre-assessment, and it says, do you know what an ED is? Environmental dictation, and it's a multiple choice questionnaire. Of course, they don't know that environmental dictation means that my environment dictates 95% of decisions that I make. How you walk, how you talk, how you dress, right? Then they say, do you know what the hood mentality is? It's me with an outward expression representing where I'm from. Because when people dress, you can look at them and pretty much tell barrio, hood, professional. You can pretty much tell the person's by their dress and their behaviorisms, right? So when we look at that, we have to say, do you recognize that as a negative behavior? Yes. So now go through this training. So now you're able to say, excuse me, son, come here. You're suffering from the hood mentality. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because the officer is the first one, the first contact, when you're arrested. And they can, start right there, administering, urban psychotherapy. Not asking officers to be a social worker or a psychologist or anything like that because they have enough on their plate already. Mm-hmm. But you're the first contact prior to them going into that dungeon and then their mind steadily being manipulated in a negative way.
And it's wonderful to have an officer actually understand it. Right there, when you understand something and you can put a face to it, it makes it more real to you, and it makes that individual more human to you.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So that, I like what you're doing here. Have you talked to the San Antonio Police Department?
As a matter of fact, I have. I did a presentation with them in June of 20. And at their TIT, which is trauma-informed training, and they love the presentation, but it's all based on funding. They saying that, well, all our funding for the next 2 years, they're open to the suggestion of this training, absolutely, but it's funding. And then it takes 3 years for me to present my my curriculum and for it to get approved. So we've been trying to talk back and forth to figure out how can we make this, a drop-in session, as a consulting training or whatnot.
And have you talked to the county?
Yes, I have. I've reached out to Tommy Calvert. He set up, matter of fact, a Zoom meeting about a year ago with the sheriff, and I've presented the program to him. And once again, it's about, funding and the facility. How are we going to facilitate this? Is it going to be through Zoom? It's a lot of different parameters that I'm being thrown at, which can be taken care of and answered, if you will. But I just know that it's just smoke because, like I was told a long time ago, that this program is going to put a lot of people out of work. Because if I change 100,000 gang members in the next 5 years, that means that they're not going back into county jail. That means that they're not going back to prison. That means that officers are not making arrests. You see what I'm saying? So if the black community and Hispanic community start thinking right and making right choices, people will be put out of work.
Well,
and I understand
I think we need to put some
people out of work.
Yeah, we need better decisions and choices, and let's work on getting that funded because it's what is. We can't worry about industries. We have to worry about individuals.
I like that.
And having good citizens, giving people the right and the opportunity to be who they should be in this life.
Yes.
Instead of reinforcing every negative thing we can reinforce and leaving someone who is ill-equipped to make the change. Mm-hmm. It was the grace of God that you met someone who had you take psychology courses. That is unlikely to happen to the 100,000 gang members that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. That's unlikely to happen for them. But this could happen for them. This could happen for them. It will only happen if it's done with intention and purpose and put there so that they can change.
Yes.
And they can experience the change in life. You've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany, and thank you, William Tutt, for coming and for talking about this. It's one of the many difficult subjects that we have to discuss, and I hope you've listened to this perspective and realized that talking about slavery, talking about the effects of what this has done in all of the communities in the United States is important. It's an important conversation. It's not a finger-pointing conversation. This is, in our forum, we are about solutions. And William Tutt has a solution. Let's help him get to where he can get that solution funded, help our police officers, our citizens, and all of the people that are affected by this mentality. Let's help make a change. That's what we're all about here. Different perspectives and seeing solutions. And you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany on my home, 9:30 a.m. The Answer. And the African American Network, where we have a local feel and a global reach. All right, you guys, I'll see you back here next week. Have a great week.